You think so, eh? I think we're live? Oh, yeah, I can hear a bit of an echo, which is perfect. That's coming from that TV. Maybe we should turn it off. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Simon, lead from Super Team Canada. We have another workshop here for our build station. This time around, we do have a new Super Team Canada member, Kevin, from Uniblock, talking about how to raise capital from a VC. And that's perfect for us right now because the deadline for the pitch is tomorrow night. So listen up, this guy's got a bunch of knowledge and he's also a very nice guy. So thank you. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining virtually in the class. I had the honor of having a talk about a month ago and I didn't screw it up, so they asked me to come back. I think there was a few threads that we want to pull on, most notably around kind of like how to raise money. And so I generally have these conversations like one-on-one. So this is kind of the first time taking my thoughts and putting it A, into a doc, and B, sharing kind of more broadly. I would say a lot of what I'm going to talk about is very tactical. It's like, do this in order to raise money. There's a few like higher level things, but generally going to be very tactical. And so one thing I didn't mention is my background. So I've sold a couple of companies. I've been in SF for about a decade. I've done kind of like the Twitter, the Coinbase kind of large company kind of route. I'm an LP/investor in a number of different funds, so I get to kind of see it from their perspective. I'm an angel in some funds as well. I've raised about $25 million for companies that I'm involved with, including Uniblock, which we're just finishing up another $4 million raise. So happy to kind of walk through everything now. And actually with questions team, how does that work? People are going to ask questions or no?
Yeah, I'll have the question on the screen and I will read them.
Cool. Okay. So let's kick it off. Again, like a tactical guide. Okay. So before we begin, I've had these conversations with, let's say, 100 different founders. And, some people are actually very anchored on the way raising worked in like 2021 very specifically. And I want to let people know that generally that's gone, right? Like things are not just flowing in the way they used to be. It might seem like they are because on LinkedIn, you'll say, oh, $100 million raise for like an AI chatbot here and there. I will say that 99.99% of founders are going to have the experience that I'm going to talk about. And so that's what we're going to talk about here. You're probably not on this stream or in this room if you're the 0.01% Sam Altman relative that's able to raise, $1 billion with no deck. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is, there are going to be some kind of verticals that are different, but generally this is like my take. So, okay. I think that raising VC money is not complicated. But it's not easy. It's very hard, but it's not like a complicated thing. And pretty much everybody on this call, everybody in this room, through grinding, can get it done. I've heard of people talking about how it didn't work. It's probably kind of like how your mindset is. And what you raise for might not necessarily be actually what you end up building or what you get traction on. And so that's like a key piece of this as well. So when I was raising at one point years ago and I was having like a shitty time in it, a good friend of mine who's, through YC raised like 50 million. He's like, no, Kev, and at the time I had met with like 30 VCs. I hadn't had a single like check. And he was like, no, you're right in the muck. That's exactly where you want to be. This is exactly what's expected. And so he's like, and he said, hey, like there's unlimited pre-seed VCs. There's literally thousands of them out there. You're not going to run out of people who can make you a check, can cut you a check. So that's just one thing to note. The space is bigger than maybe people kind of realize. The average round will take you probably 4.5 months. That's another thing I wanted to say. People think, oh, I've met with 5 VCs and I've spent like a week. That's like not going to happen. Like you need to go and talk to, we're going to get into this, but you're probably going to have to go and talk to about 100 VCs to close your round. So generally it takes about 4.5 months. So just like mentally understand, okay, I'm a builder and I'm running this company and actually I got to go allocate probably 5 months or so to doing this. And that's like generally the number. And it's going to suck. you're gonna have a shitty couple of months. Just know that it's gonna really freaking suck, and that's totally fine. It sucks for everybody, except for the 0.01% where we're just gonna kind of park those people. But it's gonna suck for all the rest of us, and just know that that's the case. And founders will generally have this like, oh, everything's great. Oh yeah, it's totally fine. You kind of have to do that. But behind closed doors, if it's founder or founder, you're like, how's it? It's like, man, it fucking sucks. Like it just sucks for everything. I also talked to some founders that are like getting stuck in the mud around finding a lead or like, all these different terms. Like just use a safe in Canada, globally, US. It's right on the website, the YC website. You can download it for free, use it for free. It's actually something that you can pitch. We're doing a clean YC safe. Asterisk, we can also talk briefly about how it would work for like token warrants. Generally, this is like the majority of it, and now people are asking for token warrants, but generally you can just download the YC safe right from the website. And say, hey, we're doing a clean YC safe. That's actually part of the pitch because people are like, oh, great, I don't have to get legal involved. This is super simple. I can cut a $100,000 check all day long. The average round size in this room and on this call, again, is probably going to be something like 500,000 at 5 million or 1 million at 10. That's like also really important to note. It actually impacts a lot of like how the raise works, what the mechanics are, how easy it is for somebody to cut your check. This would be, my opinion, this is probably like 80-20. This is like 80% of the deals are kind of in this bracket, and therefore people are accustomed to writing these checks. People are accustomed to the due diligence that's required at this level. And so you can kind of easily get that done. And we'll talk a little bit more about like how you can size your deal and like how you can get momentum, and like you don't need just to have one safe. You can do, if you wanted, you could do a $500,000, 5 million safe. And then when you get traction, which is what we did, then you can like up it if you want. So this is a really nice way to get momentum. Again, you're going to talk to about 100 VCs. So again, just being super like open with everybody on this call. When we were raising, when SBF was like screwing the whole world over a couple years ago, I had literally 69 calls before we got our first check, 69 VCs. And so, that's just actually pretty like normal. You have to screw up a couple. We'll talk about that. That's how it works. And we're going to talk about this part a lot. They're at pre-seed, they're saying, okay, I have a bet on this founding team. And, I kind of like his general idea, right? Like, hey, we're doing like whatever, DeFi on Solana, or we're going to go and do something in this vertical, like generally, but they probably know that you're going to pivot a little bit, but they're betting on you. So you have to show up in that way. And it's going to suck. Again, they're going to ghost you. They're going to lie to you. They're going to gaslight you. They're not going to send the money after they sign the deal. They're going to send half the money. You're going to get fucked every single way. And that's just actually just part of the game. But when it does happen, it literally just happened to us last week, don't think that you're doing something wrong. It's part of the game, unfortunately. Cool. All right. So I was asked to do kind of like a frame, and I'm going to do like the PC framing, which is like, oh, is this 100 or 1,000x opportunity, and can this guy do it? And it's really, honestly, the cynical framing is, can this person help me raise my next fund? So a lot of the funds are really like little startups, and their whole like reason for living is to raise their next fund. And they've got the 2 and 20 generally way to pay themselves. So that 2%, they're getting paid. So if they raise like $100 million, they're getting $2 million. That's generally how that works. And so that's going to be like, a lot of them are just like running off the fees. So what they need to do is go to LPs, investors, and say, oh, you should invest in our next fund. And so that's either they think you're going to mark up a lot, or you're just so cool, or some sort of like reason that they can position you to help them raise their own fund. So a lot like it's really cynical. It's like, can this guy help me raise my next fund? Is the cynical view of the world, which I hold. But yeah, they're like little startups. They're really just looking at you and your vision, and can this person actually like deliver what they're saying? This part's really important. We're going to talk about that. Deals that have momentum are interesting. Stalled deals are not. So when we're going to talk about like pre-work, work, getting the momentum, and what's really important is that they'll ask you like, hey, like when you start raising, like, how are things going? And they'll keep following up. If your deal is stalling, then there's no momentum and there's no pressure, and it'll like unravel and make it really, really hard to get that pressure again. So that's why finding the right, getting the right process in place, having the right valuation, what you're raising is really important. And just making sure you're constantly having this oh, the deal is moving, I need to catch up, I need to put money in before it's gone, as opposed to, oh, I can just buy it and whatever. Great. So step 0, and some of this is tongue in cheek, but it's actually true. It's go to Harvard, go to Stanford. You can drop out after you get in. This is all the pre-work. This is what you were doing yesterday for a raise that you're going to do in a couple of years. But it's actually kind of true. What VCs are looking for are signals that, this person is an outlier, this person's interesting. And, I'm just going to call it out. If you went to Stanford, you dropped out of Harvard or whatever, clearly that seems to be some sort of signal for people. Also working at OpenAI, working at a company where there is this strict way to get into the company. It's hard to do that. And, they can, again, they're trying to raise their round. So they're fund. So they're looking at it and be oh, we got this guy. Here's the team. They're amazing. Showing that they've got really great deal flow. Be on the VC radar. So what does that mean? It's okay, taking part in the super team. This hackathon, I think, is part of it. I'm certain that a lot of VCs will be there watching watching what happens. And so doing these types of things get you on people's radar. And that there's all different ways, but where are VCs residing so that you can be somebody that they've seen before, they've heard before, and they're seeing that. It's super valuable, especially when you're doing it before you actually need the money. And you'll hear things people will say to me, it's well, I didn't work at Coinbase. It's sure, but I did some of these things up front to make my life easier, or I became somebody that's donating my time to Super Team Canada before I needed it. I'm not saying it doesn't have to sound as transactional, but it is things that you can do in your life to make yourself an outlier so that people want to actually invest in you. And if we take that slightly cynical way out of it and think okay, realistically, this is helpful, this is actually again, very tactical and just an honest view of the world. I think spending time around VCs, spending time in SF, if you can, spend a week, spend 2 weeks, couch surf, literally just go to Luma, sign up for every single event, and just be there, and don't look like you are there to network in a negative way, but in a positive way. You're oh, hey, my name's Kevin, nice to meet you, I'm working on this, or oh, I'm part of this, love what you're doing. And I think again, a lot of this is signal, so you want to find as many high signal ways that you can get in the door, and this is one that I honestly find actually really helps. Become well known. So now we're all on X, we're on LinkedIn, we're on whatever, and there's these 20, 30, 50 founders that are constantly being seen. It's kind of all the same people, and a lot of them are really crafting that narrative years in advance before doing something. And actually, if you look at many of them, they kind of have little startups, or they're going to go raise funds. So trying to do that is important. Some of the interesting things I've seen people really into sports. You could be into lifting, you could be into badminton, you can be into whatever, thought pieces, just things that make you interesting so you can talk about it. So that what ends up happening in the mechanics of VC is that they're meeting, if they're good, thousands of founders a year, and if they're oh, this guy can, just throw this up, this guy can squat whatever, 300 pounds, that he remembers that, or this guy did a marathon, or this guy whatever, there's all these things you can do that just makes you different than the other 1,000 people that are coming across their table. And then I really do think the super team and everything they do here is super high quality. So you're one step up, but again, there's super team, there's other things you can do to just be in high signal. So VCs are constantly looking at what you can do. Cool. Okay, so you're gonna gear up now. So you did all that stuff, or some of the ones that you can realistically, and you're okay, I'm getting ready to actually go and start my fundraise. I want to start Uniblock. And again, what we talked about was when you go out, you want to make sure that you are getting that momentum and you're doing a really good job, your best foot forward. So yeah, like honestly, make sure your LinkedIn is good. One of the first things these VCs are going to look up is like your GitHub, your LinkedIn, or something. And it's one of those things where if it just looks unprofessional, it just signals unprofessional. And so some of this is like mitigating or like getting rid of any sort of negative signal, because one negative signal can just kill a whole deal. But you need like hundreds of like positive ones or like multiple positive ones. So make sure you look like really professional. You're gonna write up your blurb. So we can talk about your sharing blurb, but basically it's like it's gonna have like a structure that we talk about, which is essentially opportunity, team, traction, what you're raising, and then you can have like links to your deck or whatever it might be. And so that's gonna get ready. It's gonna always sound shit at first, right? Like ours, we're like talking about orchestration layers. I don't know what the fucking orchestration layer is. So you're gonna constantly get better at this, but like get it up, get people to like get some eyes on it, see if they understand it, and there's like interest in it. That's like going to be very valuable. Same with the data room. So these are so pre-seed, you're not gonna have a lot of stuff, but what you do have, make sure it's high quality. So 2-year financials that kind of take into the account like, okay, what we're gonna raise, how this kind of works, and then you're gonna want to be like, when we get to 18 months, this money will enable us to do these things. Get X customers, get Y like revenue, get some sort of traction, which will enable us to raise our seed. That's the whole point of this. And this is my previous talk, which is like every like round of funding is kind of like a leapfrog, like a lily pad to the next round of funding. And VCs will kind of inherently look at that and be like, okay, we give you $1 million, you get whatever, 2.5 years of runway, 3 years of runway, what do you accomplish at the 2-year mark to raise your next round? And so that kind of all works together with your financials, your company docs, founder team and bios, pitch deck, 1-pager, and if you have a video, you literally just spend, and that's another thing, everything you do, if you just spend like a little extra time and like a couple $100, it actually looks like 10 times better than everybody else. So you can go on like Fiverr or whatever, and there's like a ton of ways, and just make the 1-minute product demo or 2-minute product demo just look beautiful. And then get your deck ready. People start to labor on the deck. A lot of this has been solved, including the Sequoia 12-page deck. Seriously, there's like, if you Google it, there's like the traditional 12-pager, and then somebody did like the updated version. Use either one. You don't need to like think about all these different things. I would say just use this, because Sequoia is pretty smart and they've kind of figured it out. And yeah, if you like build it on whatever, Google or whatever, then you go back and say, oh, like I'm going to spend $250 or whatever, $200, whatever it is, you can make it look really nice on Fiverr or get a designer to spend like some time on it. And that will be really nice to share. So I had tried all the different like services like Metal, Visible, and they're getting better, but they were really complicated for me. So I just use my Excel tracking doc. You can use whatever you want, or Google Sheets. But essentially what you want to do is, instead of just like random, like what I see a lot of founders that have a tough time do, are they're like having this one call over here and they're not really tracking it, they're not following up, and they have this other call. You want to be like, you're a SWAT team and you're like, okay, like we're going to have our Excel doc ready, and we're going to have the firm name, the check size, contact, city, email, who introduced us, which is going to be super important, stage, like are they first meeting, second meeting, due diligence, like where they're at, last interaction, next steps, notes. And you're going to like religiously like track this and take notes during the meetings with these VCs, because they're going to hopefully tell you check size, or you can ask after they do the intro, or they're going to say things like where they live and things like that, which might be valuable information for you. So generally you just have this in your like Excel doc. You can try one of these tools. They have pros and cons. They're not very expensive. I think they have like a month or 2 free trial. But you're gonna want to like really track everything like hardcore. And then so you're gonna want your like 1 minute about us. So the way VC works, we're gonna explain it, is there is usually like somebody, either a partner or somebody who's going to meet with you, and they're gonna have all these questions that they have to like have answered, so that they can like take it back and talk to investment, to create an investment memo, to like go to like investment committee. And so as they do that, they're gonna try to figure out some questions. And if you can answer some of them in your intro, it actually makes them, honestly, like I've spent a lot of time on ours, and fucked up a lot and got better. And many times when I'm done doing my intro, people are like, "Oh, thank you. You just answered like 90% of my questions." So figure out like what that is. It's like who you are, who the team is, things like that. This lovely like vision. So the person's like, "Oh, this person's good." You come like prepared. It, again, makes them like lean in rather than just be like, "Oh, here's one of my other 1,000 meetings." Yeah.
There's a question from Kate. What about Telegram?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to pitch on Telegram in DMs, or do you force them to go on a call?
So the sharing blurb you're going to use for Telegram, specifically, some people use text, some people use other like Signal or whatever, but that sharing blurb is what you're going to share in. So you're never going to close it. So deals are never, like in my experience, are going to be closed through Telegram. What you can do is use that to get on a call or to like get going. But really, Telegram is just one of many channels that we'll talk a little bit later that you're going to use to get that meeting. So to answer your question, the sharing blurb is what you're going to be giving to everybody to share within Telegram. And yeah, if you're talking about cold outreach, other than that, we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, it's mostly like trying to get the person down the funnel. Like you're getting the VCs down the funnel, but you're never going to close them on Telegram right away. Hope that was that work? Okay. Thank you for asking the questions. So yeah, get that 1 minute about us. We're going to test it a couple times. You're going to feel bad. It's going to get better. And eventually you're going to be able to be like, hey, let's do intros. VC says who they are. Hopefully they answer some of your questions around check size or whatever, and what they're looking for, etc. Then you jump into, you're like, hey, this is me. I've done this, done that, which is all the reasons why you should invest in me. We're building Uniblock. This is what it is. This is who we've, got invested. Here's what we're doing. Here's our traction. And it sounds like this really nice 1 minute intro rather than like or jarring or whatever. And the VC's like, okay, I know who this person is. I know what they're trying to do. That's one thing that was helpful for me and I think will be helpful for you is try to meet with other founders who have raised money. I think like they'll be able to give you some feedback. They'll be able to kind of give you like a gut check. And also, and I know this question is definitely going to come up, is like, how do I get in front of VCs? And that's one of the last pages. But they can also, if they like you and they feel like this person is going to make, again, right? Like, if we're just being completely straightforward here, like they want to make sure that you aren't going to make them look bad with their VCs in their contacts. That's the reality, right? Nobody wants to look like an asshole introducing some guy who's going to, waste the time of the VCs because they are very important for that founder. So, if you're talking to a founder and they believe that this person is like doing the job and they're going to make them look good, like that can help with the intros. But also, it's not even just about the intros. It's like, hey, like, can you spend 5 minutes like listening to my pitch? Does this make sense? Like, this is something I'm missing, whatever. And then you're going to get your list of 100 VCs. So there's lists everywhere. You can get them like on LinkedIn, you get them on Google. So you get them either for your space or so if you're doing like crypto or you're doing DeFi specific. But like find all those VCs. There's literally thousands of them. Try to get like a list of the ones that are still deploying, and then cards kind of go down. You could also see on X like who's talking about rounds. So they'll generally do like an announcement picture or video or whatever, and it'll say the VCs that are involved. People will say congratulations. So smaller guys will probably not be on that big hero image. So there's a ton of different tools that you can use to see who actually invested, but you can also like just see who people like. The VCs will be like, oh, I met Kevin, 3 years ago. I'm so glad that we backed him, whatever. And so he might not that VC might not be on that piece of paper, but they'll like interact. So that's another way to see. And if you're part of like various clubs, they'll tell you all the VCs that have been involved. Yep.
How do you know which VCs are still deploying?
Yeah. So the question is, how do you know which VCs are still deploying? So almost no VC will tell you if they're not deploying, right? Because they want to stay in the game. They want their warm leads to look good. So to be honest, part of what you're going to see when I said like you're going to get like ghosted at the end, sometimes they're trying to raise their round before, or at least get like first close before they need to give you money. So I think first off, the answer is it's actually really hard to know like definitively who's still raising, and two, it almost frankly doesn't really matter. Like you just want to get in front of these people and like try to get to a yes or a no as quickly as possible. So yeah, I mean there are tools that you like Visible and some other ones that give you some signal. There's a couple of other products that give you like signal, but honestly, like I know some of the VCs on our cap table have told me in confidence like, oh, we're actually done. But then they're like, literally just yesterday, they're like, hey, can you introduce me to so and so? It's like, okay, sure, but I know they're not deploying because they told me they're out of money like 6 months ago. So yeah, part of the game, man. Okay, and then actually before we go on, because we'll talk about this again, but decide on valuation and raise amount. So some of this is really just like, frankly, arbitrary, but it's also important. When I say arbitrary, saying like, hey, we're worth $5 million or we're $10 million or whatever, frankly, is a little bit arbitrary. But the amount that you're raising, I think, is also important, and it's a little strategic. So the amount you're raising in your financials should, again, be enough money to get to the 2.5, 3 year runway. That's important. Get to the next like milestones, and it all kind of layers up. There's like pieces around like how diluted you are, etc. But long story short, you really are probably in that snack size around the 5 to 10 million. If you're much higher, that's fine. But yeah, so figure out like what your valuation raise amount is, because we can always go up. Like if you do, let's say you do the 505. Once you get 300,000 in the bank or 400,000 in the bank, if you feel good, you can just raise it. Like so, we did a 10, then we did a 15, we did a 16.5 because the market was getting better. Again, we started right when the world was ending, and our traction got a little better. Like the round got a little more competitive. And so when we felt that pressure, open up another safe, felt the pressure, open up another safe, felt the pressure. So one strategy that I think works is like pick a number that you can like do really well and then grow from there. Because if you go the other way around, it's like really hard. You're going to lose like a month or two and you start to lose momentum. Yep.
So before we move on, do you usually only have one pitch deck or do you have multiple pitch decks?
Usually I just have one. So I think the pitch deck generally is almost just like a calling card and a way for the person to like, internally kind of validate it within their VC. So I don't think you generally need multiple. It's usually just one. I think especially if you're just doing pre-seed. I'm sure if you're a larger organization and there's like some other, you want PE versus like, VC or whatever, maybe there's slightly different narratives. But I find that for me, it's like you get this Sequoia 12 pager, and it's usually we're going to talk about this. You don't actually like pitch it in the interview, like in the pitch. That like you're talking to them, you're answering questions, you're having this conversation. The deck gets sent either before or after, and they use it to kind of like associate it within the product inside the VC. So I wouldn't suggest having more than one. Yep.
When you said you sent the deck, do you usually send like a video of you pitching the deck, or is it just the deck itself and they're supposed to consume it themselves? Like there's two different kind of styles. Like sometimes decks are pretty sparse if you're talking over it.
Yeah.
Versus like for the Coliseum video, like it's more about I find it's more about the talking and less about the content of the deck. What do you do? What do you see people do? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So the deck, again, when you're doing your pitch, isn't the deck.
Exactly. Like I usually pitch off the product.
Yeah. You're pitching yourself, you're pitching your vision, you're answering all these questions. The deck is, again, kind of like a calling card that people can use. It's an artifact that people can use. So I would say I'm generally sending the deck. And if I have a really cool pitch video, you can send like a link to that.
Yeah.
So that's really nice, or if there's something within your blurb. But generally, and also we're going to talk about this as well, there's like, you want to have like DocSend or like a tracking functionality, so you can see who's opening the deck and like spending time on it. But yeah, usually in my blurb you can have a link to the deck and maybe a link to the hype video. and in the pitch you're saying, hey, this is who I am, let's ask some questions, like let's have the good conversation that you feel good about what you're looking for. And then after that, you can resend the deck, especially if they ask for it, and they can use that to create like a memo and like get their partner to come and have the second conversation with you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so your first 5 pitches are gonna suck. You're gonna fuck it up. It's not gonna make any sense. So you're gonna sacrifice your first 5. You're not gonna tell them that, but you're generally looking for, the people that you're like, that will still invest in you, and it's actual real money that they could do. But you've already talked to founders. You've got like feedback from people. You've got like a pretty good V1 of everything, and now you're gonna go and like try, and you're gonna do 5 or so, and it's all gonna suck, and you're gonna get better, and you're gonna look at stuff and think they're gonna break. You're not gonna have answers. But this is like very important because once you actually like kick it off for real, VCs are going to share it. They're going to talk about it. You're going to be in groups with people. Like it's very like living organism. And if they are like, oh, this guy had a different narrative, or oh, this guy was asking for $1 million, now he's asking for 500 or whatever. We want to dial that in before it goes like broad. So use tools like Calendly, right? Like, hey, like this is how you can book with me. You can have that on your deck. You can have that in your like blurb. DocSend, like we talked about. You're gonna find your rhythm, right? Like it's kind of like, frankly, dating or going for a job interview. The first couple job interviews you bomb. It's really normal. You're just gonna have to get better at it. So this is what we're talking about the deck. You're sending the link before and after potentially. So I think understanding how VC works is important too. So VCs are looking for LPs, so they're looking for investors. They are constantly trying, they're like little startups, are constantly trying to raise money. They're constantly looking for cool startups that can help them do this. Frankly, actually I just got invited to one in 2 weeks where I'm going to pitch to the LPs for the VC. And that helps them raise their money. Yeah.
Is LP limited partner?
Yes.
Or not liquidity provider?
No,
Yeah.
LP in this, thank you. And by the way, I don't use too many stupid acronyms, but that's one of them. So the GPs are general partners, so they're the VCs. The LPs are the investors in the fund, and the funds are always looking for more investors. Because if they're, let's say they've like half deployed fund 1, they're looking to start fund 2, or they're fund 3, or they're trying to top up whatever. And so, I got invited in a couple of weeks to go and pitch the LPs for the VC who just deployed into us. So that's just the way the ecosystem works, and they need good people to help them raise. And it's like, hey, we are a fund. Look how great our VC, our opportunities are, and it's all a matter of deal flow. And then so we've created the data room. I just use Google, but you can use, again, some of those other tools have really nice data rooms. If you have the wherewithal to learn them, or they've gotten better since I checked last year, they must be great. But you can just use a Google link and give people access and take the access away when they don't need it anymore. But again, part of this, so when I started all of this, I had to figure shit out. People were like, oh, is it a clean YC safe? And I'm just Googling what that means. It's like, oh, can you send over, the doc? Just Googling what that means. So this is actually just, again, tactically how things work. So you can ask less questions of Google. Do you have a question?
Yeah. What's in the data room?
Yeah, so that's back here. So you're going to have your 2-year financials, company and docs, founder, team bios, pitch deck, one pager. This will grow as your company grows. So a seed round versus a Series A versus B. But early on, there's not much more that you're going to have than that. Cool. For example, you'll eventually have your cap table, but early on the cap table is 0 because you have no investors. Okay. Cool. Oh yeah, sorry. One last thing. Don't just send people your data room unless they're interested. part of the game, again, is like looking like it's a bit of a hot deal, and like you're not just like, you know, like you're not begging for money. People never want to do things when people are begging. So, you know, if you're like, oh, here's all our stuff, here's everything, like more like, you know, a little hard to get. So step 3, we're in the heat of it. So we've done the pre-work where we worked at OpenAI. Then we did our 5 VC pitches. We fucked them up. We got better at it. By the end, we got really good. Now we're like, okay, we're gonna run a tight process. It's gonna suck for the next 4 or 5 months. So we're gonna take care of our mental health. We're gonna get sleep. We're going to eat well, exercise. This sounds dumb. I know people are laughing at this. The reality is, like even me, like last week, we had a VC who I met, swear to God, 10 times. I met new people came out of the woodwork that I had to meet. I met them in fucking Singapore. Everything's good. We're meeting all these people. And then literally like the last possible second, the guy was like, I didn't like how you responded to this Telegram message a month ago and we're out. And I was like, what the fuck? So now I messaged one of the guys. I'm like, hey, can we get this back on track? So I have to like get on this call with him and I'm pissed off and I'm like, whatever. And I have to like swallow my pride a little bit. And then I have to like write this like apology, misunderstanding message and whatever. Like that happened. Like you're gonna be like, oh my God, that pitch was so great. High five. Oh my God, these guys are definitely in. Everything's amazing. And you're about to go to bed and at like, you know, whatever, like 11 o'clock, a message is gonna come in like, hey, we're passing. And you're gonna feel like shit. Guarantee that's gonna happen. And it's gonna happen a lot because you're gonna meet 100 people. Or they're just gonna ghost you or whatever. So it's really, really critical that you are like an athlete and you're ready to like rock and roll for like many, many months. I know it sounds dumb, but it's not. And that's just gonna keep happening. And then when we, you know, usually in a seed or pre-seed, there's not a lot of like negotiations, but sometimes there are. And you're negotiating like random shit and you're figuring out stuff. And so just like mentally stay in the game while you're running your company and building stuff and coding at night and selling shit and maybe having a second job to pay the bills. But this is really, really, I can't like underline this enough. It's like super important to stay like strong during the process. One thing that most founders don't do, which I think helps founders that do, is like actually try to send like a monthly-ish, you know, like letter. So all the VCs you kind of met, some people that like you haven't yet met, whatever, or you've met but like haven't nailed down the call, like you're basically sending out this like update. You're saying some highlights, some like if you have any product releases, some you know if there's any big raise updates, you know if there's any burn or anything like that, depending on where you are and everything. And one thing I like, which is like a psychological thing, is doing like an investor shout out. So what'll end up happening is VCs, people will help you do things, right? They'll be like, oh, here's an intro. They'll help you with the pitch, whatever, right? And if you say thank you, other VCs will read that and they'll be like, human nature will be like, oh, I should help this guy because I want to like get like a call out, right? So this is one thing that I try to do that I really think you should, that mostly people don't. It's just like thank people that have helped you, which is really good. But yeah, these are helpful because again, you want to show that there's like this momentum and there's like pressure and how to get the deal done. Yeah, and like if the guy says, yeah, I'm in, like great, can you introduce me to some VCs? You could try the ones that say no, I don't know, generally doesn't work for me, you can try, but basically you just want to get like nice intros or whatever. And actually some people that say no, again, might be saying no because their fund is out or whatever reason, has nothing to do with you, and so maybe they will make some intros and like help you out. And I've seen that in the past too. Okay, again, I said this, but it's really important, you don't need a lead on saves. And generally, and or this early, and getting a lead is sometimes difficult. So if you're going to go this route, you can just do it. People might ask you who your lead is, and you say, oh, we're doing a party round. And so that's the terminology. Oh, like we're excited to do a party round. You can have a reason for that. It's like, oh, geographically dispersed. We want to have like, multiple people that'll help us. But basically, you can just do a party round. You don't need a lead. So again, we talked about this. You can raise the valuation. It's very difficult to lower it. Choose valuation and a deal that makes a lot of sense. We've talked about being able to raise like multiple or like issue multiple safes, and that way you get that pressure as you go. Then do a rolling close. So this one is another thing that I've seen people try to do, which is like, oh, I'm just as guilty. By the way, I'm guilty of all these things. I learned all these things the hard way. So like, just so we're clear, like I've made every one of these 50 things, I've made them as a mistake. do a roll and close. So what that means is person says you're in, shoot them the safe like immediately. Get them to sign immediately. Get them to wire immediately. If you wait, the person leaves the company. The person runs out of money. They get hacked. Like something always clearly happens. So like what I don't think you should do early days is like try to get all these VCs and like get everybody across the line or wait. No, the person says yes, and I'm guilty of this because literally we have a VC that said last night, yes, I'm in. And then I asked him a stupid question about his signature block where I should have just shipped the friggin' safe, right? Because something could happen, he could leave the company. You never know. He could literally just be like, I'm leaving the company, but I'm gonna do this guy a solid before I leave, and it's his last day. He's not gonna tell you until, like shit happens all the time, man. It's like, we're in tech, specifically in this particular world, we're in crypto, everything moves fast, they could get hacked tomorrow, like get things in the door right away. But do a roll and close right away. And again, by the way, like literally, I've met founders who've had multiple exits, who have like gone public, and even they are making these mistakes. That's another thing. So I have a really good friend who was like a really senior guy at a really well-known FANG company, and he was like, yeah, like I just want to go and talk to like these companies or these VCs, and I don't want to like talk to too many people. I want to talk to 5. And I'm like, bro, this isn't 2021, man. You gotta like, those numbers are rookie numbers, man. You gotta like up those numbers. And yeah, and then I talked with another founder who is actually in our like circle where he's like, oh yeah, like I've talked to like 7 VCs. I'm like, bro, you need to 10x that, man. He's like, oh, I don't have the energy for that. I'm like, okay, man, like that's probably not gonna work then. You gotta talk to 70 to get shit done. Yeah, because that's just the reality of the situation. Roll and close. Yeah, and when you get this done, remember, if you do the math, you're talking to at least 2 VCs a day. Yep.
What's a signature block?
Sig block is like literally like, it's going to be like the name of this, because the VC might not, the person you're talking to might not be the one that signs the doc. So it's usually like the company name, the address, the, you know, like the doing business as, like, you'll see it on the safe, it'll show it there. And you can just like ask those questions. So you can ask for the SIG block, which is actually what I asked that VC last night. I should have just sent him like the safe, but yeah, people will say that. Like people will say, oh, SIG block, and you're like, what the fuck's a SIG block? So that's what that means. It's just what happens on the end of the safe.
So you didn't ask him for, or you asked for the SIG block, but you should have known the SIG block already?
No, I think I should have just shipped him the VC instead of asking. Sorry, shipped him the safe and got him just to sign rather than like going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. I think there was way too many back and forths. This is just my own critique.
So you would have sent it without the signature.
He could put it in too.
Okay.
You could just like, if you do it, so there's 2 ways. You can either do DocSend or like a DocuSign or whatever, where they are, you can just like, you know, you've used, everybody's probably, I'm assuming most people use DocuSign. You could like set it up so that they put it right in whatever they want. Or if you're sending like a PDF, you can just allow them to like sign it or whatever you want.
This would be for like the same process for token.
Yeah, so with tokens, so it's interesting how quickly the space is moving. People wanted like SAFs at one point, so future token. Right now I've noticed, and again, it's changing really quickly, people want a safe and then they want a token warrant. So it's all kind of, and the issue that you're gonna come into is like, how do you like price that and whatever. But yes, it's effectively the exact same thing with like a side letter that'll be like a token warrant. In today, as the law changes and things change, you'll see different things. Yeah, there's 2. Okay, we'll go. I think he was first.
Yeah. You haven't really got into angels, but all this stuff applies for sure. But I'm just wondering, like, is it better to close angels first before closing a big check, or does it not matter? Like,
it's a really good question. So I do have angels in like step 4, step 5.
Yeah.
I did something dumb, but I did it for a reason. So when we were raising, it wasn't clear we were going to be able to raise. Like crypto was dead, everything was screwed. I was like, man, and I wasn't comfortable with going to my close friends and family and saying, hey, write me a $25,000 check before I even get VC.
Yep.
Now, everybody's life is different, and I was really fortunate. I was coming from a big company. I had some runway personally, things were fine. So the way I did it was, hey, I'm going to raise $1 million in VC, and then I'm going to go and line all these people up. That's how I did it. I don't necessarily think you should do that. The other way to do it is try to get some VCs and people that have like a brand that can make intros, get them early. That's like the common wisdom is to do that, to go angels first. That's actually probably, if we were going to be the way you can do it, is probably like after you fuck up all this stuff, then you can go and get some angels. Is probably how I would suggest it, because the angels can be a signal. It's like, oh, I've got a guy from Uber, I've got a guy from whatever. I think is useful. The checks they're going to give you are going to be like 5,000 to max 25,000, and actually max 25,000 is more rare generally. I mean, the common wisdom is, hey, you should be cutting $25,000 angel checks. I think the reality is that is not what I've seen in the market. Generally, it's like, even, to be honest, asking for more than 10K or like getting more than 10K, I find is fairly rare. But maybe I have friends that aren't as rich as everybody else. So I would say after you dial it in, you can go for the angels and expect the angel check to probably be like 5,000 to 25, probably around 10 to 15. And then you have to decide if you have like a minimum and things like that.
I guess just a follow-up question on that, sorry, would be, let's say you have a valuation set in your mind, you have 2-3 angels that are already on board, let's say all for 5K each, and then you pitch to a VC and they're like, nah, that's not the valuation. I want to do almost the whole round, something like that, right? What is the right way to go back to the angels and be like, hey, this guy who has a way bigger check size, he's setting the terms, whether they're the lead or not, if you're doing a party round, whoever's the biggest check usually is kind of what the terms are.
Yeah.
What is the best way to approach that with the angels? They're already probably you're gonna have a good relationship with them usually.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So I think there's a couple of questions here. One is like valuation.
Yeah.
So hopefully you kind of know the valuation you're at.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to be in the same like zip code. I don't think you're going to be like, oh, I'm pitching a 10 million val, and some VCs can be like, no, it's like 50 or like
Exactly.
3.
Yeah.
So you're probably like in the same like ballpark.
That's
like
sign a safe that says like 12 or whatever. So you just gotta.
Well, once they sign it, they're kind of like, honestly, like, you can go back and be like, hey man, can you like, I mean, that's kind of a shitty thing. The second thing I was gonna say actually is like, to be honest, your second question was if somebody wants to take the whole round. I think this is like an edge case. Like honestly, like generally people aren't like, yeah, I'm gonna cut you $1 million check. I haven't seen that as much in like really, honestly. However, the $5,000 checks from the angels is such a small percentage. I haven't actually seen the VCs care that much, to be honest. It's like, oh, you cut this guy cut a $10,000 check at whatever. They're either higher or lower. Again, you can open multiple safes. So
blended valuation kind of.
I usually just do the bigger one or the last one or whatever to make it feel like legitimate. But long story short, hopefully by the time you're taking angel money, you kind of have it mostly dialed in, just because you're named on the line, and then also like their checks are so small that it probably is not really that relevant to like, broader. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So 2 questions. What does open multiple safe mean? Is it like one at a lower valuation and then you get to choose who goes where?
So I wouldn't say do that. What I'm trying to say, so people do that, but I'm not saying do that. Okay. What I'm saying is usually you have a safe. So I'll use our example. We did a 1 at 10, right? And actually, I'll even be further than that. We started at 25. We're like, oh, I'm gonna raise 5 million, 20, because that's what literally everybody was doing in 2020, 2021, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. We're gonna raise 5 at 25. Nobody said yes. Nobody said no. We just sort of like fucking wasted. I wasted like 2-3 weeks of pitching like 10 VCs, and then it came down, and it was like, okay, we'll do 3 at whatever, I don't know, random number 20 or 10. The minute I did 1 at 10, checks came in. So that's just like, and then it was like, oh shit, okay. So this is the valuation, right? Like there's no shitty assets, just shitty prices. That's a saying that I think is actually true. So you're like, okay, we're gonna do some price discovery. What do people want? 1 at 10, okay, 10. Once that got filled to the 1 at 10, I went and got angels, that was like 100 and something thousand. So I had honored it, like I'm going to give you the same terms as the lowest, and then I went open to 15, and we took like another 760 at 15, and then there was still demand, and we took another like I don't know 400 or 500 or whatever at 16.5. So you essentially like close that safe. There's no like opening closing. It's just and then you like started taking money, and I don't generally go back. I just so that's what I mean.
And the other question I had was the other slide you had up there. How long did it take? Usually, does it take to go from first meeting to the check coming in?
It can go anywhere. So it can go anywhere from like it's usually like a month, but anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months. Yeah.
It's the first time I pitched VCA. It could take up to 2 months before they send in the check.
Yeah. So actually, so you reminded me about timing, so we should talk about that, like time of year. But the second thing, which I don't have on here, which I should add in, the other thing is like, so the way it'll work is you get introduced or you have outreach. Then there's like this 2 week lag for them to find time on their calendar or your calendar or whatever. So that's like a week or two minimum. Then you have the first call. Then they have to go back and get this other person, from their fund. That usually takes them 2 weeks, usually, to go talk to the person. They're always on vacation, whatever. Then that's like a month. Then there's like another 2 weeks for IC. So there's like when all the people get together and like decide to do things. Then there's like another week or two to like decide to sign it and then extend it to you. So it's like at least two months, I would say on average. Now, part of the pitch, some of these VC funds like, oh, I can move quick, blah blah blah. Like realistically, quick is still like, I don't know, 6 weeks. That's my experience. By the way, everything I'm telling you, there's going to be outliers on the call. They'll be, oh, this took 2 weeks, this took a year, but I'm just saying like 80-20. Oh, and then time of year. So again, it all changes. People will tell you all the counterexamples, but honestly, generally, you don't want to be like finished. You don't want to be starting a raise in the summer, and you don't want to necessarily be starting a raise at Christmas. You could be finishing and getting the final checks in the door, but generally every VC is lazy, so they'll definitely take like 2 months off, or somebody in the whole firm that needs to sign off on something will be gone. So you don't want to be starting a raise. I don't think no. We're here October, November. You kind of want you probably would have wanted to start in September. So the timelines are, and again, counterexample, and you do what you got to do, man. Like honestly, at the end of the day, you just raise when you need to raise if you have to. I'm just saying, if you can like plan and do optimal, you probably don't want to be caught between like July and August. Like people come back in September and they come back from Tahoe like Jan 15th. That's actually, I should add that to the deck next time. Okay. So I think we talked about this. Did we talk about this too, right?
Yeah. We're on the last.
We're on the last one?
Last slide.
Yep. Okay, cool. Okay. I don't know what happened before, but okay, your pitch is gonna get better. You're ready to go. If you have good questions that keep coming up, start a FAQ, put in your data room. It'll make you sound professional. A lot of this is just making you look good. They're thinking about your vision, your 1000x idea. Make sure you have good questions. It's very similar to when you have like interviews and at the end of it, they're like, hey, you have any questions? You're like, no, I'm good. Like that is not a good signal. Like generally have some like thoughtful questions. I don't know, just throw up some like, hey, tell me about some investments you're excited about. Like how do you support your portcos? Tell me about your thesis or whatever. You also want to make sure you have like the basics, which are things like, check size and, are they deploying, whatever, but you can ask some good questions to like get them to remember you. So this is what you can get angels fairly quickly, range of 5,000 to 25K. And they can make some intros. So this is probably important, and we'll talk about this a little bit if you want, but getting introduced to VCs, it's really not rocket science, and once it gets going, it just starts going. So, but you're gonna track it. So, there's like the who you already know, right? Like there's definitely VCs that are part of like this community. So that's like good, and all of the other things you've done in your past, I think was good. getting introduced via clubs, associations. Then there's like this first degree of separation when you're like, hey, Kevin, would you be interested, be open to introduce me this person or that person? So that's like first degree. Who the founders that you talk to can introduce you to. Then there's like the whole we're emailing founders, give you feedback, and then can you make some introductions? So I've actually had so Hustle Fund I got from a cold outreach on VC, or LinkedIn, which is really interesting. So it actually does happen. And back again, if your LinkedIn is like legit and everything looks legit, they're more likely to take the call. So we actually, in total, have got like 200K just from the LinkedIn messages. So they actually do work. And then, you can apply online. It's like the last level, the last try. I think honestly, we've had this. One of our largest VC we got from that actually. I think they ended up putting in like 1.3 million over the course, and it was literally just cold messaging. So that's interesting. Yeah.
So how do you get the warm leads with VCs?
So again, your network of places you've worked, of like super team members, like people are connected to you. Like think about like you're gonna have that list on of all the 100 or 200 that you want to get in touch with. Like you're gonna spend time figuring, okay, who can get me introduced to this person? Who can get me introduced to that person? How many do I have already? Like it's really like sitting down and thinking like you can just cold like I've seen this. You could just cold email 1,000 people and you'll get like I don't know, like 1% response, 5% response. So you can do that right away. But the point of this is like what's in terms of like that Maslow's hierarchy of intros, like how many can I get as high as possible is what this exercise is for. And you're gonna spend like many hours, like sit down for a day and be like, okay, how do I get as many of these across the line as high as possible? Like as high as possible being like, these people invested in my previous company and they're gonna come into this round. All the way down to like, I'm literally just messaging on their website. Does that make sense? But this is important. Like, it's not rocket science. It's like, okay, like who do I know? It's the same thing with applying for a job. It's like I want to work at like, whatever, like McDonald's. Like, who do I know that can like introduce me to the manager of McDonald's? Like, cool. I think that's it, guys. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it.
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
One question from Spectrum. So they are like a game. So what's the right time to raise funds for a game when the day one retention is 5, 10%, 25%? Do you have any advice on like based on the product and like numbers of the products?
Yeah.
What's a good timing?
Yep. So I think there's a lot of different schools of thought around when to raise. And I think some of it is quite frankly a function of your like personal expenses in life. So, one school of thought is like you're raising like ultra early on a deck and you're trying to raise a little bit to kind of get traction, and that's required because you have rent or life, whatever. And so that's like one school of thought. The other school of thought is like, oh, I'm gonna like do as much as I can to show some sort of like metric or to show like as much traction as we can before we kind of go and raise it. I think the reality is the proper way is probably somewhere in the middle, which is like the minute you actually turn on something like monetization, then you have numbers, and there's that Silicon Valley show things like don't turn on money because it's never enough. It's actually not untrue. Like with us, like our revenue is actually going really well, and it's never quite like enough. So I'm like, man, like I think he was right. So part of what you're selling early on is the dream of this being 1,000x, right? So, but the minute you actually have like metrics of some sort, then the rubber hits the road, and then you have to explain why your retention or your conversion or whatever is not quite where it should be or could be higher. I don't know enough about gaming to be an expert on if your conversion or your retention is solid, so I apologize. But what I would say is you probably want to get enough where there's like some sort of demo, there's something people can like see or play with, you have kind of enough to get going. But again, if you like, I definitely meet founders all the time where it's almost like they're embarrassed to go find VC, so they keep building and they keep building and they keep building, and they look around. They spent like a year, and it's kind of now it's kind of not too late, but it's suboptimal. So I would say, make sure you have a good co-founder. Make sure you're kind of building stuff. Make sure you have some traction. But like, it's the vision and you that they're investing in. Less at this pre-seed, less on the metrics.
Good. The next one, last one we have right now is any suggestion, guidelines for the blurb, especially if that's the first touch point. How much or little detail to include?
Yeah, I think I found one, because I figured that question would come up. So this is not bad. You can Google it and find. Can you guys see this? Can they share?
Yeah. No. They
No,
don't
share
see
this.
on
Yeah.
stream.
Now they see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I just Googled it. This is probably like a decent skeleton, but you're going to be like, hey, this is the company. This is, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the product and kind of what you're doing. If you have any sort of like something to talk about, the founding team, kind of like, again, this is what they're buying, maybe some of like the vision, and then kind of like what you're doing. So if you Google around, you can find lots of examples. And again, always getting better. What I found is at the end of it, you can have like a hot link to your deck and a hot link to your like, your video. The one thing is this has to be shareable. Again, I actually agree with this. Like, it's probably like a 30-second, like these VCs, and people are getting like dozens of these all the time. People are not going to like read a huge, like, they're not going to read it. You just want to get like that shareable, like little snack as possible. So that's what I see.
Awesome. The chat is saying thanks you. Super cool. Thank you, Kevin. We good? More questions? In the room? No? Simon? One? Looks like.
That was a question. What would
Yeah.
be your top 3 things to avoid?
I think it's more like, again, you don't want to have your deal stalling because you've not done the pre-work. I think that's probably pretty important. Lying, like actually outright lying, is not good because you'll probably could get caught. I think everybody's exaggerating and they're all like, so I'm not saying you have to be like, oh yeah, like our chances of survival are like fucking slim. But I do, there is some showmanship about it and like them investing in you. But you'll see online where people are like, oh, so and so is definitely in. Well, the VC's probably gonna ask. Like, they probably all know each other. They're just gonna ping like, hey, are you in? The guy's like, no. That sinks both VCs. So probably not lying. You could say like, oh, we have like soft commits versus hard commits, and there's ways to to talk about it in a positive way, and the way that's not like deceptive. Don't be deceptive. Those are probably the 2 major ones. So.
Question, maybe more so from like super team's perspective. We get approached a lot about getting introductions to VCs or trying to find them, or what's the next step, how do we talk to them. We get a lot of questions about Canadian VCs in particular, and also outside of Canada, how do they talk to people in Asia. So my question is, do you think it would be valuable for us to build a public database of Canadian VCs that we can kind of recommend to either our members or the Coliseum participants, and or a global super team VC database of sorts that can be offered? And once something's public, or semi-public, it's fully public. So like, it's kind of like, would you want that full database to be fully public, or would you want to gate it in some way, kind of thing?
I love that. I think there's definitely opportunity for Super Team Global and Super Team Canada to do something something really great. So I'm in part of other groups that keep some of that, and they actually have a person on staff that helps go over your deck, go everything, and move. I mean, I'm not sure how realistic this is for Super Team Canada, but there is a person that helps get funding and do that stuff. They also have demo days where VCs come, so you could probably have don't know, monthly, but like a quarterly, like, meet the VCs, things like that. So I'd actually like to talk to you offline about all the things I've seen that I think you guys can do that you're like well positioned to do better than anybody else. A list is fine, but I think the lists are a dime a dozen. Like you can literally Google right now and find like lots of. I think there's just like a value add that Super Team Canada and Super Team Global can do for sure. So, including like Solana has a bunch of funds too.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you.